Welcome to the American Arbitration Association International Center for Dispute Resolution Foundation Podcast. I'm your host, Tracey Frisch, Executive Director of the AAA-ICDR Foundation and Division Vice President of the American Arbitration Association. It's great to be with you here today. The AAA-ICDR Foundation's mission is to support the prevention and resolution of conflicts by expanding access to alternative dispute resolution. Join us as we share some of what we do and connect with thought leaders, change makers, grantees, and experts pioneering these efforts. Together, we'll explore how the AAA-ICDR is not just resolving individual conflicts, but also shaping a more peaceful world. Welcome to the AAA-ICDR Foundation Podcast. I'm Tracey Frisch, Executive Director of the Foundation and Division Vice President at the American Arbitration Association. And I'm very excited to be here today with Bridget McCormack. Bridget is President and Chief Executive Officer at the American Arbitration Association. She is the former Chief Justice of the Michigan Supreme Court, a law professor, an AI guru, and a board member of the AAA-ICDR Foundation. So welcome.
It's great to be here. My favorite topic in the world, the AAA Foundation.
Mine too. Yeah. Thank you. So I want to start us off with a question for you. So the AAA's mission emphasizes education and public benefit. How do you see the foundation extending that vision beyond the AAA's core operations?
So the foundation gives us an opportunity to grow the reach of what we know to be the incredible benefits of the alternative dispute resolution processes that we provide our users in the AAA proper. But the users in the AAA proper, of course, they contract for those services, so they choose us. And we don't have the opportunity to just bring the good message and the good work of mediation, arbitration, other alternative dispute resolution processes to communities, stakeholders, and people who we know could benefit from it. The foundation gives us that opportunity to do that and really grow the reach of alternative dispute resolution in ways that the AAA can't do on its own. So it's a wonderful extension of our mission, in my view.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The foundation is able to really be proactive with the communities that our grantees serve, going into schools, teaching conflict resolutions at young ages, going into communities, responding to 911 calls. We're expecting a police officer to show up, but it's a mediator that's showing up, really doing field on the spot mediation, which is very different than when someone's sort of ready to come to the table and seeks out a dispute resolution process.
Yeah, the thing is, people don't want to have disputes. I always say this, even at the AAA, they don't want to be repeat customers. No matter how good your product is, they don't want your product again because they don't want to have a dispute, which is a bit of a barrier for us at the AAA from basically teaching the world how beneficial some of our processes are. We all have disputes in our lives. It's just it's a reality, but nobody likes to think about disputes or plan for disputes because you're hoping not to have them. And the foundation gives us this opportunity to partner with organizations who are building these competencies in communities where we know they'll have tremendous benefit. So it's a completely different, business model, and allows us to basically really reach people in communities who will benefit across their lives from these tools.
Yeah.
So.
And not only do people not want to have disputes, but they don't want to think of themselves as not being able to resolve their own disputes.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
You want to have sort of the self-determination that I have this conflict, I have the capability to resolve it myself, and not have to sort of go to someone else to make a decision for you.
Yeah.
And I really feel that, I agree, that's what our grantees are doing, are really teaching the skills of how people can approach conflict to see it as an opportunity and not as something that has to be scary and bad. Yeah. And then how can you resolve that on your own? So what are some real concrete skills that you can use to feel empowered to resolve your own disputes?
Yeah, the AAA has, we have all kinds of users, and I actually appreciate that we serve, users at the very high end of the legal market and users who are managing disputes without lawyers. We serve anybody who comes to us and wants our help with resolving a dispute. But I feel in some of the work that the foundation does is actually, teaching people better ways to resolve disputes throughout their lives, whether they need a formal process or not. Like the work in schools in particular. I mean, my kids are, grown adults now, but they all were involved in peer mediation in high school. And I think it, changed them in important ways about how they manage so many parts of their lives that's like a gift, and a gift that I didn't give them. Like they got it in their peer mediation program in school. So I feel like the educational value of some of the projects that we're involved in is impossible to measure because it lasts like over a lifetime. So.
Yeah, and it's funny, I was also a peer mediator in high school,
yes.
So we have that in common. And one other thing I think with the foundation too is it provides sort of a way to look at conflict in a different way.
Yeah.
Maybe that you don't necessarily sort of need to think of it in such a negative light.
Yeah.
And really addresses societal issues. So I think it focuses on the person-to-person dispute.
Yeah.
But it also looks at societal. We just provided a rapid response grant to help with wildfire recovery in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Conflict
Yeah.
resolution can play a role in these sort of seemingly big intractable issues. You also we have programs that work with police and communities, real societal issues that you think like, how do you resolve this? How do you address this? And I feel like conflict resolution, can really play a role in addressing those issues.
I mean, it really echoes, sort of the AAA's founding mission. It just expands it, right? I mean, like we know that one size doesn't fit all for every conflict, and sometimes a traditional litigation process is really just not the best fit for a particular dispute, and that's why we have alternatives and people can choose alternatives. But by expanding that reach, I think this is going to sound kind of grandiose, but like it's consistent with our founder's mission, which is to basically like grow peace in our communities. And I actually think that the foundation is like critical to our, achieving our mission.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, we talk about sort of the broad mission of the foundation, and you also mention sort of disputes in courts, right?
Yeah.
So I know one of your sort of marquee areas is access to justice,
Yeah.
right? And so, one of the foundation's core goals is expanding access to justice as well. And what do you see as some of the biggest challenges in making ADR more accessible? And how do you view the foundation being able to help tackle those challenges?
Yeah, so let me step back for a minute and explain why I think growing access to ADR processes is actually fundamental to meeting the access to justice challenges that we face in this country. So 92% of Americans can't afford legal help with their civil justice problems. That means they either navigate them on their own, they try and figure out how to work their way through those problems, or they give up. And oftentimes they just give up. And giving up doesn't usually lead to great results. It means people, get an eviction notice and they just leave the apartment, or they get a debt collection notice, and even if they're not sure it's correctly like filed against them, they just, don't know what to do about it, and they have their wages garnished. And that's, causes all kinds of disruptions, I think, across communities. And it's also actually not good for courts, because when courts can't meet the justice needs of their communities, people lose confidence in courts, and public confidence is the only thing that really that really supports the rule of law. So by growing other ways to give people other methods for them to resolve disputes, by giving them more options to resolve disputes, I literally believe it's like fundamental to like supporting the rule of law. And courts can't do this on their own. It's also not always appropriate. You don't really need a court for every kind of dispute. Sometimes a mediation is a far better process, and we know that at the top of the market. And we know that in cases where people probably don't need lawyers, they just need to figure out how to resolve their differences. A lot of family law matters we know are better resolved with mediation, where parties have to continue to work together over the course of at least their kids' lives, right? So by growing access to alternative dispute resolution, I believe we literally support access to justice. If more people have options to resolve disputes in other ways outside of courts, we can make an important dent in our access to justice gap. So it's, to me, like fundamental to the rule of law.
Yeah, and I'll just highlight one of our grantees that we've been supporting who's doing this is Resolution Systems Institute based in Chicago, and they've been working on developing appropriate communications for self-represented parties, low literacy parties, low digital literacy parties who are in the court process and given the opportunity for ODR, online dispute resolution, to take advantage of the court's online mediation program. And we might get these emails and think it's spam, or might not understand sort of how to interact with the program. And they've been really working on tackling that and raising the level of engagement for people who are going through foreclosures is one of their big areas that they've been working at, and or debt collection areas, to really have that bridge between what the court's even providing for ADR and the people they're trying to help with that.
There are lots of communities across the country where a community mediation organization, whether it's a state-funded one, a locally funded one, or a private one, is a critical partner to a local court. It just is. I mean, those relationships come up sometimes, formally and sometimes informally, literally, and they end up being, really important partners to their local courts. And through the foundation, we have an opportunity to grow that infrastructure. I view us as this, we concede more growth of that infrastructure that really supports the rule of law. And, what's more important than that, right? Literally, what's more foundational than that?
Yeah, I first got my start mediating cases in community mediation centers in the Bronx and Manhattan, and that's how I really got to understand, the process. And
what was great about it.
Right, exactly. And really helping, people resolve conflicts that otherwise they'd have nowhere to go, right? These were conflicts where the police weren't going to get involved. You're not going to get an order of protection. There is no court case, right, that you can file.
Right.
There's really nowhere else that you can turn other than your community mediation center.
Yeah.
And I think, part of what I think the foundation has really been supporting is getting the word out there. Again, sort of not waiting for people to seek out ADR processes. But ADR processes seeking out the people, so getting really folks to engage in conflict resolution who otherwise may not know what number to call or where to go.
Yeah, there's going to always be cases that have to happen in public courtrooms, really always. That there are cases against the government, criminal cases. There are lots of other disputes that are disputes between family members or disputes between neighbors or disputes between people and local businesses where ongoing relationships matter a lot more than the specific way that this particular dispute gets resolved. And there's just data after data after data that shows that, mediation is a better way to resolve those disputes. And we know that. And so what can we all be doing to, continue to fertilize and seed this infrastructure? That's the sweet spot of the foundation.
Yeah. And I know another one of your key interests is innovation.
Yes.
Right? And so I'd love for you to speak to, how you feel like the foundation, can help with the innovation, right, in ADR.
So that's another, I think, key reason really important reason why the foundation supports the AAA's mission. The AAA is actually, I think, one of the most innovative organizations in legal. We are doing all kinds of interesting things to figure out how to do what we do for our users better and faster and more efficiently. But there are others doing that out in communities. You know who they are because you are doing a tremendous job with our foundation. And they're doing it through ADR processes for the most part. That's where you see innovation and lots of reasons why that is. And so when we can partner with, support, fund communities, groups within communities that are really innovating around how we can provide better processes for resolving disputes, it's a more direct growth mechanism for, innovation within ADR than maybe anything we can do at the AAA. I think we're doing incredible things, don't get me wrong, but we're doing things, again, for the parties who contract to use us, right? They're here to use us because they need our services, and we can do a lot there for those parties. But we know there's this other enormous need out there. And if we can fund, support, collaborate with, partner with the innovators out there in communities who know the difference mediation would make if we teach every middle schooler how to use those skills. That really has ripples into the world that are just not possible within our core business. And that's, a game changer. That's amazing.
Yeah, and one thing I love seeing too, in terms of looking at what our grantees are doing, is the places where they're putting ADR. They're not classic places. You wouldn't think like, ADR could be part of 911 call centers. That's about voice and choice and party self-determination and teaching 911 dispatchers ADR skills, conflict resolution skills.
100%.
It's going to make a huge impact to people who are calling in with emergencies. And I would never think like, that's an area for ADR.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people who call 911 or, ask for help from police or courts are doing it because they don't know where else to go. I mean, we have all kinds of cases that show up on court dockets that just don't belong there, but folks didn't know who else to call, right? And so they end up there. And if you give the people on the front end of those interactions other tools and other support, and they can find their way to ADR processes, mediation processes, we know that it turns out better. We know that it's better not just for the parties, but for their communities, for their families. So it's really, again, a place where the foundation can directly support and grow that infrastructure that's like core to our mission.
Mm-hmm. So I love how you've expressed, how the foundation extends the AAA's mission.
Yep.
And if you could leave listeners with one takeaway about the foundation's impact, and I won't limit you to one, sort of what would that be?
Well, well, first of all, we would love your support. So if you're looking for a place to make a donation, I promise you that what this foundation is doing is growing peace in the world. Okay, that sounds like like a big statement. That's literally what we're doing by growing alternative dispute resolution processes for people, stakeholders, communities, families who need it and don't have access to it. So please support us. That's my top line message. I would say my second message is supporting the first message. The reason to do it is we all know we need more tools for figuring out how to work through conflict. It feels like that conflict is sort of front of mind for everybody right now. So what's more important than figuring out innovative ways to resolve conflict? And that's what we're doing. And so join us. We want your help. We want your support.
Great. Thank you. And thank you for joining us today on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for everything you're doing.
My pleasure. That wraps up today's conversation on the AAA-ICDR Foundation Podcast. Thank you for joining us as we explore the power of dispute resolution in advancing access to justice and fostering impactful change. If you found this discussion insightful, we invite you to follow, rate, and share the podcast. Each share helps spread the word about the foundation and the critical work of our grantees, making dispute resolution accessible to all. To learn more about the foundation's work, the projects we support, and how you can contribute to expanding access to conflict resolution worldwide, visit AAA-ICDRFoundation.org and follow us on LinkedIn at AAA-ICDR Foundation. Until next time, let's embrace conflict as a catalyst for understanding, connection, and stronger communities. Thank you for listening.